I don't know if you guys remember back in 1983 when there was a senator that was assassinated. That was the start of the so-called rise up of the student organization, and I was one of them that go to the streets for demonstration. Kind of spend a lot of time, you know, voicing out our grievances on the streets instead of going to the classroom. It affected me. I mean, big time.
On August 21, 1983, opposition leader Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr. returned to the Philippines after several years of exile in the United States. He had already endured 7 years of solitary confinement under the Marcos administration, and he returned to a country where he faced a death sentence. When he stepped onto Philippine soil, he was shot dead on the tarmac.
The only thing I could remember was like, remember that song, Bohemian Rhapsody? Like when Ninoy Aquino was assassinated, that became like a theme song. Like they were playing all the time, and then Kris, the youngest daughter, she was so young, and then I didn't even know what was the meaning of assassin.
The assassination of Benigno Aquino was the beginning of the end of the Marcos regime. Though the assassination was blamed on a lone gunman with communist sympathies, most people believed that someone in the Marcos administration had ordered the hit. The resulting protest and the loss of trust in Marcos caused the American government to slowly reverse its position on supporting the dictator. Now, the instability in Manila threatened the security of U.S. bases. In an effort to validate his authority, Marcos announced on an American television show that he would hold early elections. The corruption and election fraud was so intense that no one trusted the official pro-Marcos results. Both Marcos and his opponent, Benigno Aquino's widow, Corazon Aquino, claimed victory.
After the election, that when he was defeated, that he did not want to vacate the Malacanang Palace. Then that's the time I begin to question. He did not want to leave. He wanted to stay forever as president, which is not. He was the one who was disobeying the law. He was not following the law. He said that he still won the election, but it was won by fraud.
In the aftermath of the election, key members of Marcos' military began to defect and throw in their support with the opposition. When officers loyal to Marcos moved to capture the rebel camps, Cardinal Sin, a leader in the Catholic Church in the Philippines, sent a call out through the radio for Filipinos to protect the rebels by blocking the highway. As nuns, priests, and other clergy answered his call, they were joined by students, activists, and average Filipinos.
Actually, majority of it is church, because Cardinal Sin back then was the head of the church, and he had the nuns, some nuns organized this march. Well, they weren't the ones who organized it, but a lot of them were, connected to the church, whether they be, belong to a parish. There were nuns on TV. I was watching it unfold on TV back then, and there were nuns marching. So it was more like Cardinal Sin back then was against Marcos. He kind of went to the other side. So he was able, because Filipinos are very religious people, and whatever, my pastor said this, my priest said that, so this must be it. So kind of like, I wouldn't say hysteria, but they kind of went along with it and, joining the bandwagon.
When we are on the streets, you always kind of worry that you will be one who gonna get arrested by the police. Because during the Marcos time, either you are with him, and if you are against him, the policeman will get you. And almost like at least 50 to 100 people will get arrested on a daily basis. I was one of the, should I say, smart guy in there, that if I see some policeman coming, I will be the first one to get out in there. I'm not gonna deny that because I don't want to get arrested because I know I was coming to the States. Once I get arrested, I will have a record in the police. I probably not be talking to you right now.
In the United States, a small but vocal group of Filipino Americans formed Marcos opposition groups. One organization, the Movement for Free Philippines, lobbied hard for Congress to decrease aid to the Marcos regime, kept the administration's abuses in the American media, and tried to share that information with opposition groups in the Philippines. Both sides knew that American support was vital to keeping Marcos in power. Both Marcos and Aquino hired public relations firms in the United States.
If there are any instances of corruption, I'd like to know. Or if my family is blamed for this, I'd like to see the evidence. In the investigation going on in the subcommittee of Congressman Solar's, they haven't been able to obtain any evidence of hidden wealth or of corruption or improper use of government aid from the United States.
It must have been difficult for Americans to think, or maybe they thought me so naive that I would believe that the communists could possibly, change their way of thinking. But I have to explain, many of these people who are now with the communists and who are probably labeled as communists are not really so. It's just that they are anti-Marcos and there is no place for them under the Marcos regime.
Even American archives played a role. Research in the National Archives revealed that Marcos's claims of being a decorated World War II guerrilla fighter were fabricated. These revelations about Marcos's character and history reduced his support on both sides of the Pacific. The battle for the Philippines was fought in the streets of Manila as well as in the halls of the U.S. Congress. The State Department and other U.S. officials determined that Marcos was a liability and needed to go. He was fast losing support, and a battle for power would destabilize a country that held important American military bases. But previously, when the United States had removed support for a dictator they had backed, things did not go well for American interest. Think of South Vietnam and Iran. In addition, President Reagan considered Marcos a genuine friend and had difficulty believing he should be deposed.
But of course, yes, CIA spies, he knows what's going on. But he didn't want to appear to be interfering with the sovereign nation. So it's politics. But when he knew that there would be possible bloodshed, but again, it's God's will, God's protection, because people were kneeling in front of tanks, praying, and then the tanks will stop, and then the people will give flowers to the soldiers. You remember that? Oh, you were still 1986. I saw that on television and in newspapers. So during, okay, you remember the Tiananmen Square? The Chinese people thought that the communists will stop, but no, the tanks ran over the people, but not in the Philippines.
Finally, under pressure from his advisors, Reagan agreed to ask Marcos to leave, but he also offered Marcos sanctuary in the United States. Marcos was told to, quote, cut and cut cleanly, end quote. In response, Marcos, his family, and some of his supporters were evacuated on American aircraft and taken to Hawaii.
I have the radio on, and I heard that the Americans were going to get Marcos out just to end it, because before the bloody war, whatever happens. I called right away to my husband. I said, well, he's leaving. That's a big news to us.
And so there was some kind of first hope and glimpse of democracy in the Philippines, and there were a lot of changes, a lot of hope for the young people that maybe this time the country will get a lot better. So I went home and in my hometown in Surigao del Sur, and that summer I was involved with helping our relatives run for office, and that was my first experience of an election.
As impressive as the People Power Revolution of 1986 was, it did not fix the problems in the Philippines. Cory Aquino's administration was marred by multiple coup attempts, insurgencies, and the massive task of rebuilding the nation's economy. Neither Cory Aquino or later administrations have been able to eliminate corruption or provide enough jobs for Filipinos. Though the instability continued after Marcos left, the first elections held after the 1986 revolution were a watershed in Philippine history. In 1992, when former General Fidel Ramos was elected president, the United States played almost no role in supporting any political candidate for the first time in 90 years.